Will do.
Good afternoon. This is the House Appropriations Committee. It is Monday, March 17th, 2025. Happy St. Patrick's Day to those who celebrate St. Patrick's Day. It's just after 1 o'clock, and we are here to review Bill H 398, an act relating to the Vermont Economic Development Authority, or VEDA. And we have a few folks here with us. So welcome, and why don't you all introduce yourselves? Emily online and everybody else here, and then we'll talk about the bill. We have the fiscal note and committee. If you want to find the details of the bill, it'll be on our committee page. Just don't print that out. Okay. So do you all want to introduce yourselves? Emily, you want to start?
Sure. Hi, I'm Emily Karras Benson, representative from Wyndham 6, Wilmington, Whitingham, Halifax, and I sit on the Commerce and Economic Development Committee in the House.
Thanks for being here. And I think Representative Granning might be trying to zoom in at some point too. So, gentlemen.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Chris Root from the Joint Fiscal Office, and I'm joined by Cameron Wood from Ledge Council. And if the committee, perhaps Mr. Wood can proceed first, and then I can follow up with the short and sweet fiscal note.
Great.
Okay. Madam Chair, would you like me to pull up the bill and share my screen, or just
Let's do that?
Okay.
That easily, that would be great. I see this came out 1100. So we probably don't need to go through all 34 pages.
Right.
So you could, because I know there's a lot of VEDA sort of technical stuff. So give us the highlights of the things that you think we'll care about.
Okay. Absolutely. So what I pulled up is I've pulled up the Commerce and Economic Development Committee's recommended amendment to the bill as introduced. As you mentioned, it is 34 pages, so I won't kind of walk through line by line of all the changes. Most of the changes, the significant majority of them are technical amendments to remove reference to subchapters that have previously been repealed, and a lot of, drafting changes, that our office makes, to bring it up into kind of conformance with our drafting style. I will highlight a few things that are more substantive. There is a proposal to expand what a eligible project or eligible facility is, as you can see here on page 2, to include capital improvements, purchasing receivables, other insurance programs, etc. The other pieces that I will just comment, as opposed to going directly to the language in the bill, I can get there if you would like me to, but some of the other substantive changes are they're extending, the bill will extend the duration of loans to local development corporations from 10 to 20 years. So doubling the time frame those local development corporations have to pay back. Some other changes that are being proposed here are authorizing the authority to pledge certain securities and enter into security and insurance and other forms of credit enhancements, and allowing them to purchase their own bonds. That is new, and that is at VEDA's recommendation of their bond counsel. It's also adding a specific provision which will shield members and staff of the authority from personal liability for their bonds or contracts unless it's due to intentional misconduct. That's a significant change that's being proposed. Another piece is there's a subchapter related to mortgage loans, and VEDA is proposing to expand that instead of just limiting them to mortgage loans, allowing them to do secured loans. So, securing the loans that they're providing, not just by mortgage, but by other security or assets.
So they're kind of changing their underwriting rules by expanding to those kinds of things.
Yes, ma'am.
Wayne?
A couple things. So it's going from profit to now allow nonprofit?
No, they currently have the ability to loan to nonprofit entities currently.
I was looking at the language up in
the page that you want, and I could go directly there.
I was just wondering what substance changes are there, are we changing the any place changing the intent of where the money goes, what kinds of businesses or entities that the
No,
money
sir.
goes to? It would change any of the requirements of what is reporting or record keeping or any of those kinds of things that would be any kind of concern if
No, sir. I would say nothing significant. There are some minor changes in relation to that, but again, more because previous subchapters have been repealed. And so there's repeal of, requirements that, are kind of no longer needed. But in the overall kind of macro sense of your question, no, sir. They're not changing significantly the findings that have to be made before they make loans out or, significantly altering how they issue money or for what purposes. If anything, it's just expanding it slightly. I will say there is one change, though, and this is where I was actually about to get to in my notes. You'll see here at the very beginning under eligible facility or eligible project.
What page is that?
This is page 1,
Okay.
very first page. It's the first change that's actually being made here.
Oh, yes.
So what this definition is saying is for eligible facilities and projects, the authority has to make a determination that the project meets the Vermont Sustainable Jobs Strategy adopted by the governor pursuant to Section 280B. And when you get all the way down to Section 280A and B, and forgive me, I don't recall exactly what page number that was on, so I will need to hunt for it for a quick second. Here we are. My understanding is VITA has multiple different subchapters. They operate multiple different programs, and they can fund certain things under those programs after making specific findings, okay? Then there is this subchapter, which is more of a catch-all. And as you can see right here on page 280, or section 280, this is page 25, section 280A, sub A, the authority may develop, modify, or implement any new financing program, provided that a specific project meets the criteria outlined in the Vermont Sustainable Jobs Strategy. So this is kind of a catch-all. If they can't fund projects under any of the other statutorily authorized programs, then they have this catch-all that allows them to fund a project if it meets the Vermont Sustainable Jobs Strategy. The only time that VITA was able to point to in which a governor has issued a Vermont Sustainable Jobs Strategy was Governor Dean back in 1999. And so what they
actually have one.
There is one, yes, ma'am, and I have it here. It's a 2-page memo and it has specific criteria. What the House Commerce Committee is proposing to do is, as opposed to having this in statute under 280B, where the governor would actually develop said strategy and solicit comment and then issue, they're just taking the strategy as it currently exists and putting it in statute.
Okay.
So,
I'm seeing it on page 26 under 280B.
yes, ma'am.
Okay.
This entire section 280B is simply removing the current process by which the governor would issue a sustainable job strategy and instead implementing the strategy as it exists with one slight minor tweak. There's a provision in here of specific criteria which talks about businesses that would reduce pollution, and the committee wanted to add the effects of climate change into that section to make it a little more expansive. So essentially, again, what this section is, I see it as more of like a catch-all. If there's a specific project that VITA wants to be able to help fund, then it doesn't meet one of their other very specific programs that are authorized, then as long as it meets some of the criteria outlined here in this new language, then they would be able to fund it. And this currently exists. All of this is currently under their authority. So,
well, and having it here may, people will pay attention to it. So that's good. Okay.
the other major change is we are adding a new program for VITA, and this is the bottom of page 30 and beginning of top of page 31. They're specifically creating a disaster recovery loan fund. And as you can see in this sub A 1 and 2, it would provide loans and other forms of financial assistance to businesses and agricultural enterprises after disasters. And then under the sub 2, it says that the authority has to consult with the secretaries of ACCD and the Secretary of Agriculture in determining whether to make funds available after a disaster event. There was conversation about how do you define disaster? Do you want to limit it to disasters that are declared by the president or the governor? There was discussion about that may be too strict. There could be localized disasters that they want to be able to respond to, but they wanted there to be that consultation. So it wasn't just the authority being authorized to make a determination of when to make those funds available. They don't have to consult when there is a disaster declared by the governor or the president. That just kind of automatically kicks in the ability to expend the funds. Yes. And then just the last remaining section 2 is simply a redesignation. So it's moving a section which really applies to the entire chapter. It's moving it out of a specific subchapter, moving it up into the general provisions of the chapter, if that makes sense.
So this proposed disaster recovery loan fund, it's a new program. I know they're taking the money from the money we had given to the governor last year for BGAP, from ACCD, and that was the 7 million we saw, and the governor wanted to take 2 million out and put it, I have the right numbers, keep the 5 in BGAP and then give them out to B. So there's no new general fund money from our standpoint, which is a good thing.
And Madam Chair, that's what I would just point out what I mentioned to you before we got started. This is the section 3 where that is happening. And there's a drafting error on my part. There should be a subdivision 3 there, which reduces the money going to BGAP. And my partners at JFO pointed this out to me.
Okay, so we'll get to that. Anyway, they don't have all the details on the fund. They'll establish policies and procedures, and VITA does this on a regular. Those of us who've either been on Commerce or worked with them, because I was in my old job running an RUC, I work with VITA all the time, and this is what they do.
It does. There is a provision in there that says that they can only charge interest, trying to keep the interest rates low. They can only charge interest such to recoup administrative costs for the fund.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you. So Chris, is this meeting you're on next?
Sure, Madam Chair. Good afternoon again, everyone. Chris Roop, Joint Fiscal. Aaron posted a very succinct fiscal note on this bill that speaks primarily to the new Vermont Disaster Recovery Loan Fund that this bill proposes to create. You'll see that the note speaks to the $2 million appropriation in fiscal 25 to fund this program. What is not explicit in the note, because the bill wasn't drafted this way, but what I want to mention to you all verbally is what you just mentioned, Madam Chair, that this $2 million is not an additional request in FY26. What is being proposed here is repurposing $2 million from FY25 that had gone to the BGAP program by reducing that appropriation from 7 million to 5 million, and then moving that 2 million over to support this. So I'm going to share my screen really quickly to show you. I'm pulling up the governor's recommended budget, and in C103, you'll see all this spelled out. So that's the language that was in the GovRec. And what Cameron was just mentioning was that sub 3 was not mentioned in the bill itself, but this language here, it's complementary to what's in the GovRec. You're proposing taking that 2 million out of BGAP and moving it to this disaster relief fund. So I know this committee often likes to amend out appropriations from underlying bills to instead reflect things in the big bill.
Right.
So one suggestion could be to, if you wanted to maintain that course of action, to amend this underlying bill to remove section 3 completely and perhaps close out that first top section of C103 in order to make sure this is funded.
Right, because we don't need it in 2 places going on.
Exactly.
It's exactly what we do. So Committee, first, do you have any questions about what is being proposed in the bill? And then second will be, you're good with doing an amendment on this bill, so we take out that section 3 because it's already in the budget. So those are two questions I'm asking you. First, does anybody have any questions about the bill? Wayne?
Well, but I'm just curious about the original 7,000, which was
7 million.
7 million, was it carried forward?
No, the 7 million was part of the 14 million that the emergency board gave to the governor last July after more flooding happened. And so we took it from it's confusing. The treasurer had the $20 million. The e-board reappropriated 14 million of that to the governor. 7 million for BGAP and 7 million for other flood relief, I think. And then he was supposed to send it back. So with excess receipt, or we have the revenue projections came in higher. So the 7 million is still at BGAP, but they don't need 7 million. They only need 5 million. So they're just going to move the other 2 into starting this loan fund, which seems like an appropriate, since we're probably going to have another flood or 2 in our life.
Was it general fund or federal?
It was years ago. It was general fund. It was general fund, but that was in 21 or 23 or 22, I can't remember, that we put the 20 million over to the treasurer, but it was from general fund at that time. Okay, so are people good with doing an amendment from this committee that strips this section 3 out because it's going to be in the budget? That also means by inference that we're going to approve that section of the budget. Check one thing off. People good with that? I'm not seeing exactly the same. Any no's? Emily, is there anything you wanted to say? And then Lynn, I'll ask you, is there anything do you want to remind us what the committee vote was, Emily?
Sure. So the committee vote was 11-0-0.
Okay. That's a good vote. Thank you. Lynn?
Yeah, it looks like section 3 has the section C103. It says H1 and 2. It does not have language from number 3 in the budget on there. It only has 1 and 2.
Right.
That's
all that's in the bill is 1 and 2.
Right. So the 7 million has been crossed out, 5,000. So that's still in the budget.
That's still in the budget.
So we just leave that alone.
Right. We're going to add this. It'll be up above that section, in that section of the budget. I think Chris had it up there and it had the 5 million there as well, right?
Correct. Yes. The language I pulled up is exactly what was in the GovRec. So I think what this committee is proposing is you all would just remove section 3 out of the bill completely and then run with what is in C103 in the GovRec.
There you go. But right. Exactly. Makes it cleaner. Okay. And it turns out that our alleged counsel brilliantly already has an amendment related to this.
Would you like to see it?
Yes. And Tom, do you have a question? The live sign is blocking it, but I think you have a question.
Yeah, I do. I mean, this is, I think this is ACCD. So this is, would I be doing this? Would I be doing this? So, Mike, this split, was this done in the BAA or was this done in the big bill now? The split between the 7 million, because we've been dealing with this language all year.
Right. We looked at it. It was something we thought about taking up in the Budget Adjustment Act, but then we agreed that we really wanted to have House Commerce take a look at it and that we shouldn't be making that decision. The policy committee should be. So it was a question of whether we took it out of the big bill and stuck it in BAA while we were there or not. And so we opted to keep it in the big bill.
So in this particular case, are we essentially, and I'm not necessarily using the right language, but are we essentially backfilling the policy in order to fill in what we already were figuring to do with the money? Is that what you were implying earlier?
No, there's no backfilling. It's the 7 million.
Policy. It's creating a policy for this change though, right?
It hasn't happened yet. If we don't approve this, there will be no disaster relief fund at VEDA. There's nothing that's been created yet. This provides the seed money to start this disaster loan fund.
Yeah. Okay. That's fine. And I'm sure I can work with well, let's see what the amendment has to say, and then we'll go from there.
It's a nice, easy amendment. I'm guessing.
Yes.
Is this posted on our website?
I will send it. I have not.
Okay.
I wasn't sure if you were.
Yeah, that's true. You should, that's right.
Intending to take it up.
So I think,
So this is what I simply drafted. This would be the Committee on Appropriations, to which is referred 398, reports that it's considered the same and recommends that the report of the Committee of Commerce and Economic Development be amended by striking out section 3 in its entirety and renumbering the remaining section, which is just the effective date.
which is section 4, so that will become section 3.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, pretty straightforward. Anybody have any questions about that? Tom, does that make sense for you?
Yeah, and the reason again for doing this is because the money is not being, the money is in the budget. It's already been received. It's already there. We're just resplitting it.
Right,
And
we're repurposing
so,
the 7 million. Yeah,
right. So we're not, as you said earlier, we're not appropriating anything. We're just again, we've created this fund for it to sit in money that's already been appropriated.
right. We're repurposing some money, so there's no new money in this.
Yep.
Yeah.
Got it.
Okay.
Hi, Representative Branning. Can I just add a moment? Is that okay?
Sure, go ahead.
So thank you. I appreciate the conversation on this. We've been looking, most of us in the State House have been trying to understand how do we get money to businesses after flooding more quickly. The amount of time that has to wait for funding for any kind of state program to be put up for all of these things is really detrimental to business in the state. And so to have this money set aside because we know we will have some other kind of disaster because they keep coming is going to make business more stable in the state. And we really appreciate that the governor was able to find the money and set it aside, and that VITA is willing to step up and administer this program. So just really appreciative of everybody's working together on this.
Thank you, Representative Branning. Helpful to have that background. Okay. So, did we put possible vote on this? So, we can vote. I'm just thinking this would, if we vote, Tom, this would count as one of your days because you're not here.
If he wants to vote.
If he wants to vote.
He doesn't have to vote.
Right. Or we could vote tomorrow morning if we needed to.
I'm feeling pretty liberal with my voting here. I'd be happy to. I would want to vote on this. So.
Okay. Well, do you want to vote on it there and have it count as one of your days, or do you want us to vote in the morning?
We could wait till tomorrow.
If you think you'll be here tomorrow.
Yeah, that's fine. Your choice. If you want to get it off the table, then I don't mind giving up one of my days.
Okay. Let me just.
But if you want to do it in the morning, that's fine too.
That's what I'm checking.
Does it need a vote today?
That's what I'm finding out. I'm trying to text right now to ask that question.
Well, the calendar's already posted. So it wouldn't go on notice until Wednesday either case.
Amendments still don't have a 24-hour notice on amendments, right?
No, we're going to do it it would be a committee amendment.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
If it's going to, it shouldn't matter.
The calendar is posted.
Right.
So we can't put it on notice tomorrow. Even if we wanted to.
It would be at the end of the day tomorrow. We do that in the past.
Put it there.
They have the calendar open, but it's closed. Okay. All right. Why don't we vote on it tomorrow morning when we'll have people here and then they don't have to use their days. And then Tom, if you're still, we will vote tomorrow regardless. Wherever.
Yeah, so you better get better.
I'll just bring whatever baggage I have with me. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Emily, thank you very much. Edie, if you're still there, you're free to go. And I think we will be working with the Maria is still trying to put together all of everybody's spreadsheets. Thank you all. Everybody got them in, I believe. And so we'll go off live in a minute. When they're ready, we'll have everybody take a look, and I'm gonna probably huddle a little bit with JFO to say what's the best way to approach it.